Welcome back to Alley Cat Paint and Design. We're getting ready to put the lighting inside both these boxes, but first, now that all the painting is done, these lenses were a little bit loose inside here. So what I've done is I've gone into the back here and all the way around in the grooves I put some glue. You can do a number of different ways to keep that glass from moving or plastic from moving. You could put wedges inside here. You could put cut pieces of strips of wood to put in there. Several things. One thing you definitely need to do is test and see if you can see the glue. You'd want to backlight it so that you can see the light come through and see if you see lumps of glue. And if you do, you want to cut that out because you don't want to see anything coming from the back to the front. But they're both ready for the image on the front. They're also both ready for lighting. We're going to do lighting here shortly. Another thing that I have for this is I have some old rusty gears, and I believe this one I was going to put on the top. I cut the back off so that we didn't have the rest of the gear sticking out the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put probably a washer. I'll put a bolt through and I'll put a washer between gear and the box to keep it away from the box, as you can see, instead of just being flat against it. It's really covering up some of my detail work. I don't want to cover it all up. I also have some bottle caps that I epoxied screws into, and so I will simply drill a hole and then just turn these. Alright, so we're about to get started with putting lights inside these boxes. Now what I've done, a little bit of work, so I kind of jumped the gun. This is one of the switches. All three toggles are connection points. And what it's difficult for you to see is this is a ground, this is a positive, and this is the negative. I have a pigtail on it, and I have a pigtail on it, and then I have my power supply. It's class 2. This is a 12 volt, 150 milliamp. I did this on purpose because I needed to test and see how this works. So these are my connection points to my light. So as soon as I plug this in, technically it's powered, and I don't want to touch those two wires together. So technically it's not on because the switch isn't on. But as soon as you flip the switch, see, I have light here now. So technically these wires are powered. But at the same time, you don't want to cross these. You don't want to touch all of them at the same time, so be careful with that. So I did that because of the complexity of the wiring. Some of the things I'm used to are just simply a positive and a negative. This one being a switch, it had a third leg. So what I did was I prepared pieces. Here's the next switch. Here are my connectors. And then I have the two wires that I will connect. And then I went ahead and got out some power supplies. The 12 volts important because the lighting, most of the lighting that I use is 12 volt. But it's not the voltage that's hurtful, it's the milliamp. If the milliamp or the amperage is too high, you'll just fry the light. These are, this one is 9 volt, 350 milliamp, which is sufficient. It doesn't have to be 12 volt, but it also can't be too low. I've tried 4 volt, 6 volt, some of those don't work, but the 9 volt certainly will. And then this one is also 12 volt. It's 750 milliamp, and that seems kind of high, but I just put lights in a light box I built for root beer, Dad's root beer, and it is 12 volt and it is 600 milliamp, and it works just fine. I think probably what I'll do is I'll go with this, and you want to do this work without plugging it in because you're going to cut the wire, and you don't want to cross or bridge the wire while it's hot because you can just fry power supply. I have a stripper tool and I have a cutting tool. This one will also cut, it'll also crimp, but this is where you strip the wires. I cut it right here, and technically this is trash. And then separate the wire just a little bit, and then you strip the wire. Now I can plug this in once I get everything dialed in, just like this one is. We're ready to put some lights in these boxes, and we're going to start with this box. I've gone through and selected the lights that we're going to put in so that I'm somewhat ready to get the ball rolling. You don't have to wait to see me test a bunch of stuff. What we've got is, this is our power source. Now the only thing left is to connect it to my wires. Now you'll see I have white, green, blue, and red. The colored ones here specifically are for the color of light that we want to have. The white is for hot. One of these is hot, and the other one will complete the circuit and turn the lights green. I'm going to connect them with these connectors these simply slide over just like that. And you'll see that it's got a white ring, a silver ring, and a white ring. The white rings are not glue per se, but they help hold on to the wire so that once they're in place, you can't pull it off. Silver is solder, so that when the wires are together and you heat it up, it melts and closes it up. There's different ones that you can get. These are the ones that I have, different gauges as you can, but they come in all different sizes, and that's what they're for. And kind of as the picture shows, you use a heat gun to heat it up and it melts it down. I'm going to go ahead and start to melt them on. I don't want this white ring beyond the wire, but I want it at the edge of the wire where the wire is exposed. And then as you heat it, you don't want to heat the whole thing. You're going to want to heat back here and shrink this. If you shrink all of it, you can't connect your wire. Now that's probably all it took to get this side to shrink down just a little bit. So we'll leave that just like that. Twisting the wire helps keep the end of it from looking like a broom and therefore making it harder to put this on. We don't want it too far this way, we don't want it too far that way. You can literally see it shrink right in front of your eyes if you watch close. Now I'm fortunate that this wire of lights actually already had its end, and I didn't like how it was terminated, so I just lopped it off, and then I've got exposed wire here, so that I can make the connection. You can also, most of them, you see these joints right here, usually you can cut it right there if you need a longer or shorter piece. But this came out of a kit that was brand new, hadn't used it for anything. Then what we'll do is one of these ends goes in to the opposite side, and then you heat it up. Now at the same time, I also use this. This is heat shrink, and I get it from Harbor Freight. These guys I order from Amazon. And what I will do is I will slide this over the wire. I want it far enough away from the edge. And you might ask, what's that for? Because if this has a plasticky rubber coating already, why are you putting it on again? Well, I can see just by chance on this green one of the wires I didn't get twisted on, and as I push this on, it pushed the wire out. So now I have a piece of exposed wire right here that can cause a short or an issue. What that black stuff does is it comes in and it will cover from one end all the way across and cover the other end, and then I can shrink that down and to be sure we don't have wires touching. That shows you that we've got power now. I just need it real quick to test. Make sure that I'm going to hook the right ones up. I just push that in until it makes connection. And I'm definitely making connection, but I'm getting nothing there. So those don't go that way, they go the opposite way. There we go. Pretty easy. I always test before I shrink. You saw how short these wires are. If you screw it up, you might be out of luck using the green again. Once it's kind of on there, once those white strips have melted and once the solder has melted, you're not likely going to get it back off, not cleanly anyway. I'm going to shut this off, but you kind of have to be careful. You don't want to pull the wires back out. They both appear to, oops, see, look, I pulled that right out. That's okay, let's do this one side first. You may not be able to see it, but I could see that soften and melt in there. Now that's pretty soft, and you saw me moving. You don't want to just stay in one location. Again, this is like a rubber boot almost, and you will just melt it. And then I don't pull this on immediately and cover it. It's pretty warm, and I have had times where I've tried to move it and I've kind of struggled to move it before I know the first part that gets on there starts melting and I can't move it any further. Just give it a second and let it cool. And as you can see, this one, this side of the glue strip or whatever that is not very melted, but that side is actually quite melted. So it's probably more tight on this side than that side. So let's do the other one. Don't make too much fun of my tool here, even though it's purple and sparkly. I got it pretty cheap. I think it would work better, as you saw in the picture, the heat gun itself had a little shroud to direct the heat, and you could put the wire through it and it would almost give it heat almost all the way around the wire. It would probably help it melt a little quicker. I don't have that little shroud, but that's okay. So there we go. Those are both in and secure now. We'll just heat shrink up and cover that connector. Now this stuff will shrink even faster than those connectors. It's 1/4 inch. And you're not going to get a super tight fit all the way. You can see where the connector is for sure. You got 1, 2, 3 little bulges. That's where the connector is for sure. The whole idea is just to help cover the connector and any wires that might be exposed. They do make this shrink wrap in many different sizes, but quarter seems to be the most standard that I use. You also might be able to see that I'm being careful about where I point this. You might not be able to tell, it's not really pointing at my hand, it's kind of pointing above it, things like that, because even though this is little and it doesn't look like anything big, it will burn you. When you're doing these projects, be careful and don't burn yourself. Now I think the very tips of these are exposed. I think what I'll do is fold one over just a little, and I'll take this little piece I cut off and I'll put it on there, shrink it down so that those exposed ends are not touching. There we go. Okay, so now it's time to put it in. So you'll set on your switcher, you'll set this nut to whatever depth it needs to be. Okay, now you got to remember how this is open. It helps that there's a little tab there and there's only a one groove, and I'll tighten that. Now the inside. Okay, so we've got some wires we have to deal with here. You have to remember on your back piece that you're going to use to cover it, the back of the box. Usually the inside of mine is painted white. I'm not so worried about that. But you got to leave a notch. So if you're going to have the wire come out the side, you need to leave a notch, or if you're going to have it come out the bottom, leave a notch. You don't want to just put it down there and then put a screw in there to hold the back on, because you'll cause a pinch in the wire and that could eventually cause fraying and stuff like that. Now there are several different ways to attach your strip of light. The ones I typically buy come with a sticky back, so I usually peel that off and then I stick it around on the inside all the way around. I also go back with different clips like this one. This one's, as you can see from the side profile, it's pretty flat, but the whole idea is to take the light and to hold it down. You put a screw in the one side and it helps hold it in place so that see how it wants to move because it's got that hook. It helps hold it in place, and these are the ones I'm going to use for this because it is a very flat light. First thing I'll do is peel off the sticky back. Sometimes it's hard to get started either at the front or at the back, but you can find areas where it's kind of bubbling where the back of the tape is peeling off, and off it goes just like that. Now I've got some excess here I have to deal with, so you kind of have to think about those things as you start working. So where do I want these wires to go? I don't want them hanging down against this because they'll cast a shadow. I definitely want all of this wire pulled up and away. This is also the top, and I want this wire to come down, okay, just like that. So this will trail down and I will secure it in here. That's for several reasons. Again, we don't want it touching this and therefore casting like a shadow on the back of your screen. But at the same time, we don't want it being pulled out the back either. I usually also put the lights as far back as I can get them. The closer they are to that, I presume you could end up just seeing dots of light really strong and then the glow. And I don't want dots of light, I just want the glow. Okay, just like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. The hope is nobody really sees it, right? Let's see what it looks like. I don't know how well you see it on the camera, but this section of lighting is further back in the box and you don't see those glowing dots. I definitely see glowing dots because it's too close to the surface, but it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and put in all of the clips like I showed you without recording. You don't need to see all that. Now you put them in wherever you want, but they're to help hold that in place. So if you only put 2 or 3, there's a good chance over time it's going to start to come loose and it's going to droop down and hang down inside there, not where they're supposed to. So on these longer sides, I would probably put 3 or 4. On the bottom, you probably only need 1, 3 or 4 again, and then probably 2 or 3 here across the top as well. You just don't want to later on see those lights sagging down inside there. All right, there we go. Back is screwed on. The lights are all in place. I still need to tighten this, but we'll worry about that later. But this is what's going to go on it. Maybe now you kind of can see how it all comes together. So let's apply this. If you've never applied one of these, I always start by making sure it's good and stuck to the front piece that helps you peel it off. Make sure your surface is nice and clean, nothing in the way, so that when you apply it, it doesn't have any bumps in it, lumps in it, that kind of thing. And you just start to peel it off away from the backing, nice and slow. And if you see something that's not coming off with the front piece, you just repress it. Still not wanting to come up. So let's go from a different angle. we go. And once you have the entire image peeled off, you apply it. Then you take your presser, like that. You don't want to press too hard. You don't want to break or crack your plastic. And I would say that's fairly straight. And once you've got it pressed on really well, you peel off the transfer layer. Nice and slow. And you want to definitely pull at a pretty hard angle. You don't want to be out here trying to pull it off. There it is. If you don't know what this is from, it's from the movie Aliens. So this is supposed to look like maybe a piece of their ship. That's why it's so weathered and seen some travel. Let's work on the other one. All right, we need to get started assembling all of the wiring and switch for the other box. So let's get started with that. Now this light strip is definitely a little different. See how it's thicker? This is a water resistant coating. What you got to do is cut that off, and I usually go right behind the first LED diode and just cut through it and peel that off so that you can expose those two connection points. Definitely have to be careful. If you cut through the actual back strapping of it, you will ruin it. Now once it's peeled off, I don't know about you, but I'm not the soldering type that I can do something quite this small. We have to have connectors for it. I found these online, I believe also from Amazon, and I like them. Almost looks like a little dice. One side, as you can see at the bottom, it's open all the way across. That's so that you can slide this in. And of course it's too big. There we go. That'll go in there now. Got to back the screws out just like that. You can hold on both pieces. It doesn't take much to get it on there and get it snug. Okay, let's set that aside for a second. Again, you want stripped edge ends. Okay, that's probably good. Sometimes what I do is take these and bend them backwards just a little so that once I get it inside here, it's a little snugger. And I watch until I start to see the copper wire just stick out beyond the sheeting here. And then I usually use these, but you can use these. That's what these down here are for, is to crimp that down and that off so that the wire does not come back out. Doesn't budge. That. A little tug in there. So this go on here. This wire, you may be able to see, you may not, is white, has a white stripe. It should go on the positive, and then this guy should go like that. And I noticed on the other one I had to bend this down a little. And then this wire and this wire will go to my light. So let's test it. Blue light means we have power already. There we go. So we know that that is hooked up that way. No need to use these because we've got the little cube. All right. And when I secure these, those other little hooks are not the easiest to use in such a small box. Hard to get the drill in there at any proper angle, but these are bubbled because so is the light strip. So again, we strip the tape off the back and we start to work our way around. Now on this one, I went ahead and put holes for some accessories. So let's put the switch in first. Okay, before I can go any further, there's not enough collar on here to go through the opening and then leave threads to get the nut on. So I'm gonna have to remove a little more material here. Let me go take care of that. I cut away the material, put in the lights, added the accessories. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.